So Michigan goes to Nebraska. I'm hearing point spreads. I haven't looked it up in the 3 to 4, 4.5 range, something like that, a little bit lower than I think most people would think on the surface. And now the challenge for this Michigan football team, because Nebraska's played pretty well. They have found ways to lose against decent teams. The most recent going to Michigan State, not giving up a first down in the second half, playing that well defensively, but still finding a way to lose. And by way of special teams gaffes, basically. And before that, it was a nice effort at Oklahoma, but they lose by a touchdown. They find ways to lose there as well. And basically, Scott Frost, I don't see where they've won a game against a quality opponent. Basically, in his tenure, they've beaten up on the very bottom of the Big Ten and then their non-conference games. So for the Michigan side of things, this is okay. We conquered a huge challenge that for the players on that roster that they had not achieved. Wisconsin on the road. That football discipline for a good team to be able to string wins together and to be able to come down from the high, get that out of your system for about 24 hours, and then refocus. Next mission, go take care of business.
Well, from what Jim Harbaugh said in his press conference and his radio show yesterday, it seems like this Michigan football team is doing just that. He said that Aiden Hutchinson, after practice yesterday, said everybody in the weight room in 10 minutes, and every single person was there within 10 minutes, and they're ready to go for a lift to get jumping there and head into this week. And then even before that, J.J. McCarthy, Donovan Edwards, and Andrell Anthony, 3 freshmen, got off the bus, went straight to the practice field and started running routes. And so it feels like this team is not satisfied with where they're at right now. And they've actually come out, so a lot of players have come out and said it in their press conferences too, saying we've done nothing. There are no banners raised yet for being 5-0. And so I think that they are taking that in stride, where they celebrated hard in that locker room. They celebrated hard on the field at the end of the third quarter in Madison. But now, that 24 or 48-hour rule, whatever you want to call it, is over. They're back to the grind. And so looking ahead to Nebraska this week, at the beginning of the season, we obviously thought that Wisconsin was going to be that really, really tough game. Nebraska was not going to be. All of a sudden, it's almost flip-flopped, where now going to Nebraska, they're hot. They've played, 3 or 4 games in a row here that they've played really well. Not all coming out with wins, as you said, but that offense is legit. And statistically, they're the second-ranked offense in the Big Ten behind Ohio State. So statistically, okay, in terms of total yardage, all right?
Fordham's on the schedule.
I'm looking at the
in this most recent game against Northwestern. When you've only played 6 games, one can they racked up like 650 yards in that game. But yeah, statistically, Nebraska is getting the job done, no doubt.
Yeah, and so I think that's we talked about the hump of going to Wisconsin and having this Michigan offense go up against the best defense. Well, now it seems like this Michigan defense is going to go up against the best offense that they've seen so far this year. And so, Adrian Martinez has been using his legs and moving the ball and doing a lot here. And at the end of that Rutgers game, we did see Michigan struggle with the read option and struggle with Noah Vedral moving his legs and utilizing his talents. And so I don't know, what Michigan plans to do if they're going to have Josh Ross spy Adrian Martinez, but it does seem like this Nebraska offense is going to be a decently tough test for this solid Michigan defense.
Yeah, I'm not a believer in Nebraska right now, and Nebraska folks can get mad at me. I'm a believer that they started to play where for basically 3 seasons, anybody decent has pretty much just bludgeoned them, that they've been competitive against those teams we just mentioned. And then last week, again, I will give them credit, not for beating Northwestern because everybody is, but that they came out, laid down the hammer, and just annihilated them like a good team should. Now I got to see them beat somebody good. And they've got the game at home. And I talk about just defensive nuances. Michigan's going to have to face a legitimate option. They are implementing the option play into their attack and have run it quite a bit and quite effectively.
Yeah, it's something different. It's kind of funny. Michigan has gone against a lot of different offenses already in just 5 or 6 games now. And so, actually, obviously, Mike McDonald is brand new here, but when Don Brown was here, Michigan struggled always against a mobile quarterback. They were always playing man to man, and then you got everybody covered except for that quarterback, and he squirts loose and all that. You never know what happens. So I'm interested to see what Mike McDonald does. I'm pretty confident in what Mike McDonald is doing right now. He is, for Michigan right now, the hire of the year through 5 games. And so I think with what he's brought from the Baltimore Ravens, probably going against Lamar Jackson in practice enough, he should know, what to do against an option team or just a mobile quarterback in general. So we'll see how that goes. But I still think, even with the stats that are showing Nebraska, even with the, what they showed on Saturday against Northwestern, I'm still going to give Michigan's defense the advantage over Nebraska's offense right now. They've returned 6 punts for a total of 11 yards, 1.8 average, 1.8 yards.
Yeah,
per
that's
punt.
still, amazingly awful. It's atrocious. Like if your punter's averaging 42 yards a punt, that means the average return is 41 yards
right
against you. The one that comes to mind is against Michigan State. They had that game, I don't want to say in the bag. There was still like 3 minutes left in the game, but as I stated earlier, Michigan State didn't get a first down in the second half. They couldn't do anything. Nebraska punts with like 3 minutes. One play, one punt return touchdown, and they go to overtime and they blow it. So this has been Nebraska under Scott Frost.
That's what I was just going to say is, it's just crazy how Scott Frost has seemingly, as a fan of the Detroit Lions as well, he finds ways to lose just like the Lions do. And so it's something where they've put themselves in the position to win a ball game. They're a couple plays away from being 5-1, right? Or 4-1 right now. 5-1. They
played an extra game.
Yeah, you're right. They played week 0. And so it is, I think they're a better football team than their record shows. But at the end of the day, they still have Scott Frost at the helm for this game as well. But it's just interesting what's going to happen to Nebraska or what's going to happen to Scott Frost if they end up at 6-6 here too. Nobody expected what was going to have or what has happened here under Scott Frost, but it's been underwhelming, I'd say, to say the least.
They're in one of those places where this is his 4th year, and all the periphery indications are that they have a much better football program than what they had when he took it over from Mike Riley. Strength and conditioning's been upgraded. Everybody looks so much better coming off the bus, more NFL prospects. All those periphery items that should equal winning eventually are supposed to be in place, but it hasn't resulted, on the field yet.
Yeah, and I will say, I think after a Wisconsin win, normally, obviously, we said all the things about what Michigan is doing with their players and getting ready for this game, but there still is the smell of a trap game here. You go into Lincoln at night, they're on a roll. Nebraska fans are going to be crazy out there because there's nothing else to do in October in Nebraska. And your Nebraska fans will love that one too.
Yeah. They enjoy those comments.
Yeah.
They usually come by way of like Miami or Florida State, but
yeah. But I do think in Vegas with the line, I think it's saying that as well, that it's not, not looking like it's going to just be an easy walk for Michigan on Saturday. That's for sure.
I do believe Nebraska's improved. I do think that that's legitimate on the field, but in terms of translating that into a record, I picked them to go 6-6 this year. Okay, they stand, of course, at 3-3. Michigan, Minnesota, Purdue. They should go 2-1. They have to go 2-1.
Purdue's not looking terrible though.
No, Minnesota and Purdue can both play. Like that lower to mid tier in the Big Ten is just a free for all. All those I expect when it's going to be Rutgers, Indiana, Maryland, Minnesota, Purdue on the field against each other. I don't know what's going to happen. I have no idea.
Yeah.
And Nebraska may still be in that realm. It's not like they've done anything to break free of that being in that category either.
Right.
So Michigan, Minnesota, Purdue, then they finish with it. This isn't quite as daunting as I thought it was going to be initially for an obvious reason, but their last 3 games are Ohio State, Wisconsin, Iowa.
Oh,
it's going to be tough for them to find wins.
Well, for them to make a bowl game then, which I think is got to be what their goal was going into the season, is just make a bowl game, right?
Yeah.
They would have had to beat Illinois to start the year, right? I mean, that one set them off the rails for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they could be looking back at a couple of these games saying, they're 5-7, looking at the Illinois game, looking at the MSU game. It could be bad looking at the schedule and what could have been for Nebraska at the end of the year. So I don't want to get too cocky going into this game though, seriously, because I do think it's like, it could be all of a sudden they put up 30 something on Michigan's, the same way that teams have done it in the past. All of a sudden a couple big plays and you just never know. And then they got the momentum at night. It could be one of those games. I wouldn't be shocked if that happened.
I actually think their defense is better than their offense. I do think that their defense is a legitimate top 5 or so in the Big Ten. I think they're good. They're decent, more so than the offense I've been sold on.
And I think there too, what I would worry about is Josh Gaddis game planning for Wisconsin for the past 3 weeks and probably not touching the Nebraska game yet. All of a sudden he's got to get to the Nebraska game here. And he's like, crap, now what do I do? We used everything to get past that Wisconsin defense. What are we going to pull out against Nebraska now to make it interesting? So there's a lot of variables going on in this game that make it more interesting than it would be or would have looked at the beginning of the season. That's for sure.